Yo, YouTube, what's up with your boy, Sports and Fitness Rants? I'm back, guys. Hit that like button. Subscribe to my channel. What's up, y'all? Welcome back, guys. Welcome back, man. Got another great video for you guys today, as usual, man. You guys know the deal on this channel. It's all about setting the record straight, stopping the lies, stopping the narratives, stopping them from rewriting history, guys. And in this video, I want to talk about some of the great two-way players in NBA's history, guys. It's not a list or a 1 through 10 list or anything like that. Just some guys, that I was thinking about as, the great two-way players in the history of the game, guys. And I came up with like 10 names that I just thought about really off the top of my head. Guys, like I said, when I hear the word two-way, these guys popped into my mind right away. And I wrote down some honorable mention type guys, but I want to talk about some of the main guys. And the reason why I was thinking about the two-way players is that, back in the day when we think about two-way players, the star players, they weren't just one-dimensional, right? A lot of the star players that I grew up watching, they were two-way stars, man, two-way superstars. They weren't like, good on offense and great on defense, or, good on defense and great on offense. They were great on defense and great on offense, these guys, right? They impacted the game on both sides of the ball. These are some of the elite guys on both sides, two-way, elite two-way guys. Right, I'm going to talk about, because today in this era of NBA over the last, 5-6 years or so, I feel like you don't really get the star players to be two-way players now. A lot of the star players now today, all they do is dribble and shoot. They don't really play defense, not like that. You know what I'm saying? Not consistently, not at an elite level like some of the great two-way players in the history of the game did. So I wanted to talk about some of these guys in relation to, like I said, the newer players today, and how they mostly just do one thing. A lot of guys today don't play defense, right? Because defense is not really in the game like that. So these guys don't care about defense. Man, I want to thank you guys, everyone across the world, everyone across the states has been supporting my channel, man. I want to send a special thanks out to all you guys in the membership, man, that, continue to support my channel. Like I said, it really means a lot, guys. Like I said, you guys who come through the live streams, you guys sending me emails and messages. Shout out to everybody on Instagram that reaches out to me. I'm truly humbled, guys. And like I said, forgive me if I take a little bit long to respond to you guys, man. Shout out to Howard Hollis. Like I said, shout out to Joshua Gonzalez. Thank you for all you guys who send me stuff, man. And you guys know what to do, man. Turn the volume all the way up. Hit that play button. Remember, these videos are for educational purposes. And let's roll. So, yes, guys, like I said, excuse me for a second. I wanted to talk about some of the great two-way players in NBA's history. Now, I've mentioned some of these guys in, some of my videos throughout, the years that I've been on here. And I've talked about, how a lot of the guys back in the day, the top players, they played both sides of the ball, right? Because basketball's offense and defense. Defense was important back in the day. We know that over the last 10 seasons in the NBA, defense has been pretty much obsolete, right? It's been pretty much taken out of the game, the physicality of the game. So the defensive effort, intensity is not really at the same level as it was back in the day. And that's why we say today, these guys are playing in the weakest, softest era. The defense is not like that. There's no competition. There's no rivalries. There's no physicality in the game. And the mindset of these guys have changed. So they don't take pride in defense, right? No one really wants to be a lockdown defender or give that max effort on the defensive end night in and night out. These guys rather rest on defense, lollygag on defense, have someone else play defense, right? They're the star players. I'm not going to play defense. I'm just going to play offense. I'm going to dribble the ball. I'm going to be a playmaker. That's what I'm going to do. But I'm not going to play any defense. And back in the day, the star players played both ways, right? A lot of the great players played both sides of the ball, guys. They gave the effort on both sides of the ball. And to me, they were just greater two-way players back in the day. So I wrote down some of these names, some of the guys. You guys probably know some of the guys. I've mentioned these guys, and like I said, in videos in the past. Some of the great two-way players in NBA history. Once again, it's not a definitive list of a 1 through 10 or the 10 greatest two-way players in the history of the game. That's not what this is about. This is to highlight and show you guys the difference of what players back in the day did, how they were able to give the effort on both sides of the ball consistently at a high level versus what the guys today are doing. And also, like I said, I wanted to draw out some other names, guys that we forgot about that don't get mentioned a lot. I mentioned a lot of guys in these videos. I love when LeBron James fans and, some of these haters of my channel, they'll try to say that, all I talk about is Michael Jordan, LeBron James. Are you kidding me? I mentioned so many different players in my videos. I've done so many videos on different players that no one's ever heard of or remembers, that no one else is doing videos on. I've done videos on these guys. Once again, I have almost 1,000 fitness and health videos on my channel that LeBron James fans never have any interest in watching those videos and seeing what I'm talking about in those videos because they don't care. They're just here to cry and moan in your comment section. But you guys know that I'm out there putting in the work, man. And I've talked about the errors. And I talk about all the players that I grew up watching. I mentioned all these guys, man. Many, many different players. So, let's start with the obvious names here. Michael Jordan, once again, to me, the greatest two-way player in the history of the game. I don't think there's ever been another player as potent offensively and as potent defensively while winning games, championships, being the leader of a team. The only other guy that I could think of would be maybe Wilt Chamberlain. He's the only guy that I could think of that dominated the offensive end the way that he dominated the offensive end, right? 7 straight scoring titles, like I said, averaging 50 points a game in a season. We all know about Wilt Chamberlain's prowess on the offensive end. However, he also was one of the elite level defenders. Now, many times people will talk about Bill Russell, and rightfully so, as the greatest defender in the history of the game. You'll hear people talk about all the time, oh, Bill Russell, the greatest defensive player in the history of the game. And like I said, he earned a reputation going against guys like Wilt Chamberlain, right? The defensive effort that he gave against someone like Wilt Chamberlain. So no, you're not going to shut Wilt Chamberlain down. What you do is you make these guys work for it. You're not going to shut Michael Jordan down. But John Starks, Gerald Wilkins, right? Craig Elos, right? You wanted to make Michael Jordan work for it. Make him earn it, right? That's what you want the elite level scorers to do. Earn it. Not make it easy for them. You want them to work for their points. And that's what a lot of these guys did. So Bill Russell made people earn out there. But Wilt Chamberlain is an elite level defensive player. Simultaneously, an elite level offensive player. So to me, that's really the only guy that you could say is comparable to Michael Jordan on a two-way play. Except when we think about Michael Jordan, he didn't have the physical advantages, height-wise, and the arms, the size of a Wilt Chamberlain, which helps Wilt Chamberlain play defense, right? Being 7'2" or whatever Wilt Chamberlain was, 300 pounds, helps you on defense. Michael Jordan didn't have that. He did have the dimensions as far as the big hands and the long arms for his body length or for his height. But once again, he wasn't 7'2". So we think about that. To me, Michael Jordan is, like I said, one of the elite level two-way players, obviously. To me, the greatest two-way player in the history of the game. To me, what Michael Jordan could do offensively and defensively simultaneously, like I said, while winning championships, winning games, MVPs, just leading your team, building up a dynasty. What he was able to do to me has not been duplicated. Obviously, Hakeem Olajuwon, one of the great two-way players in the history of the game. Right? You could argue Hakeem Olajuwon is the greatest two-way center. Like I said, you argue with him with Wilt Chamberlain. These guys are up there. As far as two-way play, I'm telling you what Wilt Chamberlain was doing is not really, noted as much because they didn't keep steals and blocks in Wilt Chamberlain's day. But I'm pretty sure, when you look into the history books and you listen to some of the people, that chronicled this stuff, they're talking about Wilt Chamberlain averaging 8 blocks a game in some of these seasons. Insane, unheard of numbers. If they were keeping blocks and steals, Wilt Chamberlain, how many triple doubles would Wilt Chamberlain have had? Way more than anyone else. Way more than Jason Kidd or LeBron James or Oscar Robertson or Russell Westbrook, Nikola Jokic, Magic Johnson. Wilt Chamberlain blown these guys out of the water. They didn't keep those stats though. So once again, this goes to the PR numbers, right? Oh, Nikola Jokic, #1 in PR. Once again, in this weak era, Wilt Chamberlain would probably be #1 in PR for years if they kept blocks and steals. They didn't do that, though. So these are the kinds of things we have to think about. But Hakeem Olajuwon was one of the elite two-way players. Everyone knows Hakeem Olajuwon, easily one of the, elite two-way players in the history of the game. What Hakeem Olajuwon could do on both sides of the ball at that position, when you think about the footwork of Hakeem Olajuwon on offense and the things that he could do on defense, the man could create steals. He could block shots. He could, lock you up on the perimeter. He could, guard the pick and rolls, right? He could fight through the screens. He could defend guys down in the post, right? We think about all that stuff on the defensive end, right? The man was an intimidator down there, right? Had the instincts on defense. But offensively, once again, elite level offensive play, a player, the elite level footwork of Hakeem Olajuwon in the post, this man could do it all down there. Left hand, right spin, left spin, drop step, anything you want. He could pick and pop on you. He could hit the mid-range jumper. This is Hakeem Olajuwon, man. Winning a Defensive Player of the Year award, MVP, championship, Finals MVP, all in the same season. No one else has done this. That's Hakeem Olajuwon, guys. This is what the man was doing out there. Elite level two-way player. Another guy, David Robinson. Another elite level two-way player. David Robinson, man, to me, David Robinson, his athleticism was superior to Hakeem Olajuwon's. Right? I think we all get that. I'm not saying that he was better than or greater than Hakeem Olajuwon, but athletically, running the court-wise, David Robinson was a better athlete than Hakeem Olajuwon. David Robinson, one of the great athletes at that position, up there with the Bill Russells and the Wilt Chamberlains at that center position. Shaquille O'Neal was a great athlete at that center position. We think about some of these guys. David Robinson could run the court like a deer, man. And his dunks, he's one of the great dunkers at the center position. He had flair. Backwards, double clutch dunks. Obviously, the two-hand power jams. The one-hand tomahawks. David Robinson, man, could drop 70 on you. The man dropped 70 and then go out there and block 10 shots in a game. Right? I believe he has 2 quadruple doubles on his resume. So this is David Robinson, guys. Sensational David Robinson. Let's not forget that he lost 2 years of his basketball career to the U.S. Naval Service. So he was drafted in 1988, but did not play in the NBA until 1990 was his actual rookie season. So he lost 2 years of his prime of his career to the Naval Service. But David Robinson, man, sensational. These guys today, they couldn't shine David Robinson's shoes, man. I would love to see David Robinson going against Joel Embiid, or Hakeem Olajuwon going against Joel Embiid, or Hakeem Olajuwon going against Nikola Jokic, or Rudy Gobert. Some of these other guys, Brook Lopez, or Bam Adebayo, some of Isaiah Hartenstein, or Ivica Zubac. I would love to see these guys go against those guys, man. Insane. Jerry West, you guys have heard me many times bring up Jerry West. Jerry West is a top 10, or in my top 10 list all time. I think Jerry West is one of the great competitors in the history of the game. And once again, one of the elite two-way players. We all know about Jerry West's offensive prowess. Most people know about his offensive prowess. The man was a pure jump shooter, a clutch player, right? This is Jerry West, Mr. Clutch. So if we think about all these things, we all know about his offensive prowess, right? The man would probably have a bunch of scoring titles if he didn't play in the same era as Wilt Chamberlain, as Bob Pettit, Oscar Robertson, Elgin Baylor. All these guys were elite level scorers. And this is who Jerry West was playing in the same era as these guys. But Jerry West averaged, 27 points a game for his career. Once again, elite level back in them days. Also, elite level defensive player. And let's not forget that a lot of these guys don't have all defensive team selections, let's say. A Wilt Chamberlain, for example, you can go on his resume and be like, this man never made an all defensive team. What is this guy talking about? How's he one of the elite level defenders? Once again, do your homework, do the research, right? And you'll find out about what Wilt Chamberlain was doing on the defensive end simultaneously, what he was doing on the offensive end, right? So once again, we think about the all-defensive selections. I believe the first all-defensive team was 1969, if I remember correctly. That was, I think, the first year they came up with the all-defensive selections. So guys like Wilt Chamberlain, or I think maybe Wilt Chamberlain maybe 2 all-defensive teams might be on his resume, I think. Or you look at someone like a Bill Russell, right, who many people consider the greatest defensive player in the history of the game, or arguably the greatest defensive player in the history of the game, has one all-defensive team on his resume, once again, because the last year of his career was the first year they came up with all-defensive teams. So if you go look at Jerry West's career, and you look at the years that he played, once again, this man accumulated all of these all-defensive selections when half of his career, they didn't even have all-defensive teams. So, these are kinds of things that we have to think about, when we talk about, Michael Jordan has, 9 all-defensive first teams, or, Tim Duncan has this, or Kobe Bryant has that. That's because they played in an era where there were always defensive selections available to be made. Some of these other guys, Wilt Chamberlain, Jerry West, they didn't have that. So Jerry was obviously one of the elite two-way players. Obviously, I just mentioned Kobe Bryant, one of the elite two-way players in the history of the game. Now, these are the best of the best guys from what I can think of. These are the best of the best, the elite of the elite on both sides of the ball. These are not guys that could score and play defense. We're talking about guys that are elite-level scorers and that were elite-level defenders simultaneously. Simultaneously. That's what you had to be to qualify for what I was thinking about. All right? So obviously Kobe Bryant, we all know what Kobe Bryant could do on the defensive end and his offensive prowess, the effort that Kobe Bryant gave. These guys gave effort on defense. It mattered to them to play defense. They didn't want to just be known as one-sided players, one-dimensional guys, right? You remember Michael Jordan say he felt slighted, and he felt like his offense was overshadowing his defense. And he wanted to be known as a complete basketball player. A lot of these guys today, they don't care about being a complete basketball player because what do you hear now? You hear people say now, oh, these guys are all-around basketball players. Oh, these guys are great all-around plays, but they never include defense. They'll say all-around, never mention defense. They'll talk about passing and scoring. That's all-around. No, it's not. That's offense. All-around is offense and defense. Two-way play, right? Basketball players have to play both sides of the ball. And once again, in basketball, you don't come out of the game on defense. This isn't NFL football. You actually have to play both sides of the ball. And the guys back in the day did it at a higher level, guys. I mean, much higher level, as you can see of the names I'm reading off on the list here. Tim Duncan, again, another elite two-way player. Tim Duncan, who sacrificed offensive numbers, right? So people might look at Tim Duncan's offensive numbers and be like, oh, he wasn't one of those elite level scorers. Tim Duncan sacrificed offensive production to win games. He played elite level defense damn near to the end of his career. So he was like 37, 38 years old, Tim Duncan. Still out there giving the effort, playing lockdown defense. He wasn't loudly gagging, standing around with his hands on his hips, you know what I'm saying, allowing his teammates to cover for him. He had to cover for everybody else. He was the anchor on the defense of the Spurs for all those years. Think about the Spurs. They were one of their top 2, 3, number 1 defense all those years with Tim Duncan there. He was the mainstay, right, especially after David Robinson left. So Tim Duncan, obviously, an elite two-way player. Like I said, sacrifice offensive numbers. Tim Duncan could have probably averaged 27, 28, maybe even 30 points a game in some of those seasons if he wanted to go out there and chuck up a bunch of shots and just dominate the ball and be one of those guys and not be focused on winning games. But he was more worried about winning. Wasn't necessarily worried about the stats. But the impact was there for Tim Duncan on both sides of the ball. One of the elite post-up players, the big fundamental. Tim Duncan. Kevin Garnett, obviously Kevin Garnett, one of the elite two-way players, in my opinion. Kevin Garnett, with his athleticism, what he could do. You know, oftentimes you'll hear people say, oh, Kevin Garnett was a better basketball player than Tim Duncan. He just wasn't greater than Tim Duncan. And I tell you, I really have a problem with the better and the greater thing because it might apply to some players in certain circumstances. But overall, to me, if you're the better basketball player, then you should have the greater career, or we should view you as greater. The thing about Tim Duncan, yeah, maybe he didn't have the overall, quote-unquote, skills of a Kevin Garnett. When we talk about the way that Kevin Garnett could put the ball on the floor and face guys up, to me, he had a little bit more pizzazz, a little more to his game. But was he as fundamentally sound as Tim Duncan? No, I don't believe he was. Was he as stout as Tim Duncan was? No, I don't believe he was. So that, in turn, you know, allowed Tim Duncan to become greater. You see what I'm saying here, guys? That's the difference here. But once again, Kevin Garnett, one of the elite two-way players in the history of the NBA. The intensity of Kevin Garnett. The man won Defensive Player of the Year award, I believe, in 2008. And like, what was he, like 33 years old or whatever he was at that time, Kevin Garnett. So shout out to Kevin Garnett, who always gave the effort, the intensity, one of the elite two-way players at his peak. I mean, this guy was sensational, man. The things he could do, rebound. I mean, he could guard guys on the perimeter. He could guard guys down low. Like I said, he could get back and help. You know what I'm saying? Like, he just had that ability. Once again, another great athlete, Kevin Garnett. Another guy, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Obviously, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, one of the elite two-way players in the history of the game. What Kareem Abdul-Jabbar could do scoring the ball offensively and what he could do as far as rim protecting and defensively rebounding the basketball. Remember, rebounding and defense go hand in hand, guys. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, one of the elite two-way players, guys. Right? This is why Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is often brought up as the greatest player of all time. Because of the things that he could do on the court. His scoring prowess, right? He hit the sky hook. He had his go-to move that was unstoppable. And like I said, he played defense. To me, I don't think he was as great of a defender as a Wilt Chamberlain or as a Hakeem Olajuwon, or maybe not even a David Robinson, in my opinion. Like I said, maybe you guys think that, you know, Kareem was greater on defense than those guys. But to me, those guys were a little bit better on defense because they moved a little bit better. To me, they might have had better instincts. David Robinson, to me, was a greater athlete than Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. You know what I'm saying? He just could jump higher. And like I said, he just could do things, could recover quick. He was quicker. He was faster. But I'm not saying that David Robinson was a greater player than Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. But I think Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, obviously, one of the elite two-way players in the history of the game. And John Havlicek, I got on here, man. Once again, John Hondo Havlicek, I brought this guy many times. I told you that to me, he's a top 5 small forward in the history of the NBA, probably number 4. If I had to put a number on it, right above Elgin Baylor. But John Havlicek, one of the elite two-way players in the history of the game. Once again, John Havlicek played in an era where this man has, like, what, 8 all-defensive teams on his resume. And, like, the first, 7 years of his career, they didn't even have all-defensive teams. So John Havlicek would probably have an NBA record for all-defensive team selections if they did all defensive teams in his era. Same thing with some of these other guys. Like, how many Defensive Player of the Year awards would Wilt Chamberlain have if they had that award in his era? How many would Bill Russell have? Right? These are the kinds of things we have to think about, right? Nate Thurman, some of these other guys. Like, how many Defensive Player of the Year awards or all defensive selections would these guys have made if they kept these stats and had those kinds of teams back in them days, man? So John Havlicek is an elite two-way player, man, going against guys like Dr. J, going against guys like Rick Barry, man. So once again, shout out to John Havlicek. Like I said, going against guys like Elgin Baylor. That was John Havlicek, man. Elite two-way play. You know what I'm saying? The man was a Finals MVP after Bill Russell retired, leading the Celtics to a championship. And like I said, just was one of those guys on defense that never got tired. This man was averaging like 45 minutes a game some of these seasons. And they said that his lungs were larger than the average person's. So he never got tired, this man. Never got tired on defense. He was just out there hustling, giving the effort, man. So John Havlicek. So what is that? 1, 2, we got Michael Jordan, Wilt Chamberlain, Hakeem Olajuwon, David Robinson, Jerry West, Kobe Bryant, Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett, John Havlicek, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Those are 10 names. I didn't even realize it was 10. It just worked out to be 10. That's great. 10 names on that list, guys. These are some of the elite guys. Honorable mention guys that I thought about. Guys like Patrick Ewing, Walt Clyde Frazier. These are elite two-way players, guys. Gary Payton, Kevin McHale, Karl Malone, Sidney Moncrief, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Kawhi Leonard, Alonzo Mourning could have been a guy. Like, to me, Alonzo Mourning, Scottie Pippen, they're borderline. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're not elite offensive players. Like, Alonzo Mourning's an elite offensive center. Scottie Pippen was an elite offensive guy, but they're two-way players, just not the elite guys. But you got Scottie Pippen, Alonzo Mourning, Joe Dumars, Anthony Davis, Reggie Lewis. To me, Reggie Lewis, if he did not die tragically, to me, Reggie Lewis was on the cusp of being an elite two-way player. I told you, I saw him block Michael Jordan's jump shot like 3 times in a single game. Never seen anyone else do that. Reggie Lewis was like a 6'7" shooting guard. Once again, Michael Jordan was guarded by all short guys. Reggie Lewis was bigger than Michael Jordan, man. Once again, Reggie Lewis was on the verge. He was actually ascending to all-star status. To me, Reggie Lewis would have been an elite two-way player, man. He had that ability, man, or the potential. So these are some of the names I threw out. Now, I know this video's going kind of long, but I want you guys to think about this. What I'm talking about in relation to the players over the last 5-6 years now, and the lack of elite two-way players that we have in the NBA. Now, if you heard me mention some of these guys like Giannis, Anthony Davis, Kawhi Leonard. You know, to me, these are probably the greatest two-way players of the last 10 seasons, man. It would be someone like Kawhi Leonard. To me, Kawhi Leonard would be a top 5, top 10 two-way player in the history of the NBA. You know, if he just played a couple more seasons at that level, he didn't really put together enough seasons consecutively for me to put him up here with these other guys that played all these seasons consecutively, and they weren't load managing out there. Kawhi Leonard, an elite two-way player, man, at his best. I told you, from like 2014 to 2017, those 4 seasons in there, Kawhi Leonard was, like I said, one of the great two-way players in the history of the game. What he was doing in the 2017 Western Conference Finals, sensational, man. Sensational. But if you think about the last 5-6 years, Kawhi Leonard has made an all-NBA team and an all-defensive team at the same time, right? Showing that you're one of the top two-way players in the league. However, the problem is, for a lot of these guys, like Kawhi Leonard, for example, 2021, he made the all-defensive team and the all-NBA team. The man played 52 games, though. 52 games. So once again, I'm not impressed with that. You know, you're making these teams over the last 5-6 years when we know the NBA has become a joke, but you're not playing any games. So it ain't the same. You think about Jimmy Butler. Same thing. Jimmy Butler could be labeled as a two-way player. To me, he's not an elite two-way player. He's not an elite offensive guy, Jimmy Butler, to me. And to me, he's not really an elite-level defender. He's a very good defender, Jimmy Butler. Once again, for this era, he's very good. But overall, in the historical perspective, he's not with those guys I mentioned. He's not on that level consistently. Once again, Jimmy Butler made an all-NBA team, I think the 3rd team, and made an all-defensive team in 2021, played 52 games. Just like Kawhi Leonard. 52 games, but they qualified. Once again, that was where they had to put the minimum out of these guys. But he was on an all-defensive team at 52 games, guys. I mean, come on, man. What are we talking about here? Joel Embiid. Think about Joel Embiid, right? Supposedly one of the elite two-way guys. They keep telling us Joel Embiid has the potential, the body size to be an elite two-way player. Just never materialized. He's not healthy enough. So Joel Embiid made an all-defensive team and an all-NBA team. Same thing, 2021 guys. Played 51 games. 51 games. Not impressed. Hakeem Olajuwon wasn't doing that. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar showed up to work every night, man. David Robinson wasn't doing this. So, I mean, we think about Ben Simmons, guys. Ben Simmons made an all-NBA team and an all-defensive team at the same time. I can't remember what year that was. It might have been 2020. I can't remember, but he made an all-defensive team and an all-NBA team. Ben Simmons, guys. Is Ben Simmons an elite-level offensive player? Nope. But in this era of NBA, he was considered a two-way player, a guy who made an all-NBA team and an all-defensive team, right? In this era, they were talking about Ben Simmons, right? Of one of the great defenders of the era. Ben Simmons, man, he's nowhere elite on offense. He's not a two-way player. The guy can't do anything on offense. He can't even shoot. Can't make layups. He's scared to shoot. Rudy Gobert's made an all-NBA team and all-defensive teams in this week era. Rudy Gobert, guys. Do you think that Rudy Gobert is sniffing an all-defensive team over Hakeem Olajuwon, David Robinson, Patrick Ewing, Alonzo Mourning, Dikembe Mutombo? Any of these guys in the 90s? Hell no. Not even close. But he won 4 Defensive Player of the Year awards in this era. He would not sniff a Defensive Player of the Year award, let alone make an all-defensive team going against those guys, because those guys were elite. Elite on both sides. Is Rudy Gobert elite on offense? Hell no. He couldn't shine the shoes of David Robinson. He ain't dropping 70 in a game, even this week era. David Robinson probably dropped 80 points in this era. These guys might even sniff 100 in this era. It's got to be Rudy Gobert. The only guys, to me, over the last 10 seasons, like I said, that could be qualified or be considered as elite two-way players would be Giannis Antetokounmpo, Kawhi Leonard, and Anthony Davis. To me, those are the only 3 guys I could think of. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you guys can think of some other names and throw them out there. To me, those are the 3 names over the last 10 seasons I could think of that would be comparable to some of the guys' names I read off. And I told you, what Kawhi Leonard was doing for those 4 years, outstanding. But once again, the man can't sniff 80 games, can't sniff 70 games. So I can't really put him up there in that conversation like that. He just didn't have the complete career. Giannis Antetokounmpo, we could put there as maybe a top 10 all-time great two-way player. I didn't have him on my top 10 here. Like I said, it wasn't a top 10, but I didn't have him in the top 10 names that I thought of. He wasn't one of those 10 names or the first 10 names that I thought of, off the top of my head. But Giannis is an elite two-way player. Once again, in this era, he's one of the great defenders and great offensive players simultaneously, right? We think about Giannis, he won an MVP and Defensive Player of the Year award at the same time, like Michael Jordan, Hakeem Olajuwon. So that's elite right there, man. That's something special right there. This way Giannis does. And, before the last couple of seasons, Giannis was very durable. He was out there all the time. The last couple of seasons, I told you, he's become very fragile. But Giannis and Anthony Davis, same thing with Anthony Davis. He's been very frail, fragile. He's missed a lot of games in his career. We get all that. But when Anthony Davis is on the court and that man is playing, once again, like a Kawhi Leonard, when he's on the court playing, he's one of the elite two-way guys over the last 10 seasons, man. Anthony Davis, hands down. You might even be able to argue that Anthony Davis is the best two-way player in the last 10 seasons. Offensively, Giannis can't really do what Anthony Davis does offensively, the overall offensive game. Not saying that Giannis not as potent. Giannis is potent offensively because he plays his game. But Anthony Davis has a much more well-rounded offensive game. His skills on the offensive end are just, to me, better. So you can definitely see Anthony Davis being a greater offensive player than Giannis. And on defense, they're pretty similar. Like I said, Giannis is being known for being a lot more durable and tougher. Anthony Davis being more frail. Anthony Davis should easily have won at least one Defensive Player of the Year award on his resume. The fact that he never does or never did, it speaks to his lack of health. Because Rudy Gobert has 4. Anthony Davis ain't got 1. That's kind of like, it's criminal, guys. It's criminal. That's what it is. So as you guys can see, I know this video went super long, man. But as you guys can see, the two-way players of the past, the elite guys, they're head and shoulders above the guys today. And like I said, the guys today are not playing the games. So now you don't get any all-NBA guys that are all-defensive team over the last, I think, 2 or 3 years. I don't think anyone but besides Anthony Davis has made all-NBA and all-defensive. Not even Giannis, guys, over the last 2 seasons. Whereas back in the day, all these guys were mainstays on the all-NBA team and the all-defensive team. All of these guys. Michael Jordan, Wilt Chamberlain, Hakeem Olajuwon, David Robinson, Jerry West, Kobe Bryant, Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett, John Havlicek, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I mean, these guys, like I said, some of those guys, they didn't have all defensive teams during their time, but these guys were elite on both sides, guys. Elite, the top guys. Patrick Ewing, Walt Clyde Frazier, Gary Payton, Kevin McHale. We think about some of these guys. Karl Malone, Sidney Moncrief. It just, like I said, these are the guys that we're thinking about. Joe Dumars, to me, borderline on the offense. He's not really an elite offensive guy, but one of the great perimeter defensive guys. Like I said, shout out to Reggie Lewis, man. So you guys know the deal, man. Maybe you guys have some other names you could throw out there that you could think of that I missed. I didn't think of. Remember, this wasn't a 1 through 10 list or ranking these guys. I was just, over the top of my head, some of the elite two-way guys that I remember in the history of the game, man. And to me, the guys of today, over the last, like I said, 5 years or so, we just don't get the elite two-way guys anymore. The guys making all NBA teams and, all defensive first teams and all NBA first teams. You don't see this kind of stuff, man. It's unheard of now. Now, you have specialists now. You have guys who just play defense, and then you have all these star players who just play offense. No one plays both sides. Those are the facts, guys. You guys know the deal, man. I'll catch you guys on the next one.